Yeah, I've run across another problem as I'm working, and I want to be able to show you these issues so you know how to resolve them in your build. What I have here is a curve, another curve, another curve, and another curve, but as you can see, as I select these and I go to use my boundary tool, I get something that looks like this, where it's all sort of bunched up and not doing the surface that I want it to do. So, on closer examination, let's get rid of that surface. We're going to take a look at these. I see that this curve is started here at this end, and this one starts over here, this one starts over here, and this one starts over here. Alright, so theoretically, if this one starts and this one starts on parallel, the loft should be okay. So let's try a different kind of a surface first so we can know how that reacts. I'm going to try a loft, and that does okay. I need to rebuild the surface like most of them, but let's check and see why our rails are not working properly. Before we do that, we'll try a different tack here. Sometimes it's just about finding the tool that's going to work best for you. So let's try bi-rail. I have two rails selected. Now what I'm going to do is push enter, and it's asking for the rails. Now I'm going to select one and then the other, and as you can see, that worked okay. So I'll just go ahead in and rebuild that to make it nice and clean. And I want 10 across this way, but I don't want as many this way. And of course, I usually get this backwards on the first try. Let's do that again. And okay, now we have a nice clean surface to be able to work with. Now here on the back of the vehicle, I see that I need to break up this section a little bit more so that I have four-sided areas to be able to create NURBS patches a little bit better. But I also am missing a really important curve here at the back of the trunk in order to define this shape. So as we did before, we're just going to go in here, and I'm going to select my EP curve tool with my C key down in order to snap to that particular curve that's defining that shape. I'm going to also recognize the trunk coming up here, and then give myself a couple of other knots, and with the Shift X key down I'll be able to snap that to my grid there, and enter, and that will create a curve. Now Control D will duplicate that, and then I'll go ahead and type in a -1, which will go ahead and mirror that over. With that selected, I Shift select this curve and attach curves. That gives me a nice long curve there. So then I want to go ahead and check it in my side view, and I can see that that's not quite in the position that I would want it to be. So I can just easily go in and move that. I'm going to bring it down, I think. Let's see, let's put it in the profile. Yeah, I want it at the highest point back here where I'm defining the rest of the high points. So I'll come back in here, and with my move tool. Alright, so this right down here is probably going to be a different curve than I want it to be. So again, we'll just pop back up here to the top view down, and we'll go ahead and delete some of these extra knots that are trying to help us define the curve but not helping that much. Get rid of those. Sometimes the less knots you have, the better your curve. So we want a little bit less of a curve back there, and then we want to snap these points to this rail curve again. So with my C key down, I'm just going to snap those on. Alright, and let's snap that curve back. Alright, so, alright, now up here we have some issues also to resolve. So what I'm going to do is simply create another curve here. I'm going to recognize this corner of the trunk and give myself a few in here. And I'm going to create another one here. I'll finish that one. Alright. Shift. See where this one is ending up here. Alright. To grab the isoprime next to it. Match it up. So I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these guys. And Control D, move that over. Let's go top down here. We'll line that up. I think that'll be better. Select that and attach curves. This one needs to be broken. So we'll curve point and detach curves. This one can be attached then to this one. Okay. Alright. Now I think we might have something to. Alright, let's duplicate this curve. And we will set a couple of edit points on that. Shift key down. Alright, detach. We can get this surface in here. Let's see what happens. Alright, surface. Will boundary give us what we need? Okay. Now I'm looking at this particular area on the vehicle. I have 3 curves laid out here to define it. And that's not going to work because patches are square. So I want to go ahead and show you this as something not to do. If we bi-rail that, it's not going to do anything. If we loft that, we got a real bad problem there. And if we boundary that, we may get a surface in there that looks like something that we could possibly try to work with, but this is going to give us a real problem here. So we don't want anything that looks like it's going to create a pole, because as we know, working with polygons, poles are bad. So let's go ahead and undo that and take another look at our visual reference to find out exactly how that area is constructed. So as we can see, we have a frame for the windshield that comes around here, and it's likely seamed right here. I can look at other visual reference to determine that, but likely that's where the seam is, and then the bar going across. So, and this line that we have is a good to maintain shape of the windshield. And determining what to do with this area, we're going to need to lay in a few more curves to be able to create that how we want it. So I'm going to select this curve right here, and we're going to duplicate that, Control D, and we're going to just move that over a bit to be able to begin to define that shape. Right click, Edit Curves. I'm going to come down in here and snap those curves to that spline right down here. Snap. Now I can move that back up over here. Will help that, the appearance of that. Okay, in here I have a few too many knots, so we're just going to delete that one and snap this one to this surface, or this curve. Put that back up there. And I'm going to do the same with this curve. I'm going to duplicate that and move it over a little bit to help to begin to define that area. Let's put our top down to get that position correctly. And just going to move that down into a location where we need to start that. And we'll come in here and just snap this curve. Let's get all of that. C key down on the keyboard. And I'm going to snap to this curve over here. Alright, so I'm going to and drop an edit point in here. Say detach. And then I can go ahead and select these two and attach in order to test that theory. And then we'll have to mirror that all over there if it works. Enter. Oops. Select my surfacing tool by Rail 3 Plus. Enter to begin selecting the rails. 1, 2. And I am getting a little bit less of a problem up here. Let's try to rebuild that. Let's see. Rebuild surface. Let's do 10. We are still getting a crease in that area. So let's take a look at our splines here. Let's go to X-ray. Let's test that. Sometimes the less knots, the better. Alright. Let's try it again. Surface by rail 3, enter rail 2 rails. Alright. It's a little bit better up here. Still have lots of curvature happening here. So let's see if we try a different approach here. Rebuild that. Alright, so what's happening is I've got a nice smooth surface along the front, but here I still have some bunching. So what I'm going to do is right click, grab the isoform on this, and I'm going to go up here to edit NURBS, and I'm going to detach surfaces so that this particular surface, whoops, that particular surface is clear of this one, and then I can go ahead and work on this one separately. Okay, as you can see on this particular part of the windshield, we've got some tweaked surface here. So if you go into, you right click and go to the right, you'll see hull. If you bring up the hull, you can actually see the cage that's deforming this mesh, and we can see a little bit better what's happening here. Is that this particular isoform that's down the center is actually overlapping, or trying to overlap and tweak that shape. So now that we have a clear picture of what is happening, if we go right click control, you can see where those control points actually are. So if I shift select along that isoform, you can't see the line, we can actually see the imaginary line. We'll try to pull up as many of those control points along that line as possible and just move those over. Now you can see that that is already beginning to really help that surface come together a little bit more. So we just want to do that enough to straighten that out. You can right click and go back to hull and see where that control point is a little bit better. This is the one that we need to grab in order to straighten that out a little bit more. So just another way of tweaking a little bit the surfaces when they're not cooperating with you fully. Alright, this is slow going, it's not as perfect a method as some others, but when you've got a patch, it's just really not cooperating. There are ways of getting in there and seeing what's happening. Now this curvature is not going to work real well in polygons. We'll need to continue to tweak on that, or reconfigure our splines over here in order to get a better result. Okay.